Hello, my lovely listeners. I'm Dr. Mary Barson.
And I'm Dr. Lucy Burns. Welcome to this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. Good morning, lovely listeners. Dr. Lucy here on another beautiful winter's morning. I'm here with my good friend, who you know well, Dr. Mary. How are you this morning, Maz?
I'm very well, thank you. Just been for a swim this sunny, wintry morning. I'm feeling good.
Wonderful, wonderful. So today we thought we'd just go back to a few basics because people often say, in a nutshell, tell me what to eat. So, Dr. Mary, when people say that to you, what do you say?
Well, I usually like to do it with an aid of a blank piece of paper, but everyone's just going to have to use their imaginations now. I talk about building a plate. It's really simple, and it's the foundational skill of eating a well-formulated, low-carb, real food diet. You start off, you pick your protein, and your protein could be meat, fish, eggs, seafood. If you're not eating animal proteins, we generally recommend people do, but if you're not eating animal proteins, then it's probably going to have to be tofu or tempeh. It's a high protein plant-based source, or pea protein powder. So you pick your protein, and then you add in your low-carb veggies or your low-carb salad. You add in a bit of fat to taste, a little bit of fat for the cooking, and then your salt and your spices. That's build your plate. You start with your protein, then you add in your veggies and salad, and make sure there's, enough fat in there to keep it satiating, maybe 1 to 2 tablespoons of fat within the meal, and then you've got your salt and your seasoning.
Absolutely. This is the formula that makes it so easy because we really, really love protein. There's lots of reasons, and we're going to talk about those. But yeah, it makes it so simple when you just go, right, what protein am I going to have? And, it could be mince, could be steak, could be beef, could be lamb, could be chicken, could be fish, it could be eggs. And look, it could be dairy. Dairy's probably not enough. There's probably not enough protein in dairy to have that as like the sole source of your protein. And for some people, they don't eat a lot of dairy. Or as Mary mentioned, for the vegetarians, the only real low-carb option is tofu and tempeh. Most other proteins in vegetarian land come packaged with carbs. That, lentils and all of those, unfortunately, have a lot of carbs. Now, again, if you're not insulin resistant, if you're not trying to lose weight and you want to eat lentils, go for it. I'm not lentil phobic. But if you've got insulin resistance, then lentils probably, and their friends, probably not going to be helpful.
Absolutely. We love protein. So an example of this build your plate idea, when you get your protein, then you add in your veggies, you make sure that you've got enough fat in there just to keep it delicious and satiating, and you have your seasoning and salt as well, would be like a beautiful piece of steak with a delicious salad. And then you've got the little bit of fat within the steak. That might be all the fat that you need. You might not need to add any more fat to it, or you might want to put a little bit of olive oil and seasoning on your salad. That's a beautiful meal. Or it could be some delicious fried eggs with a bit of spinach and mushrooms. And there's fat in the eggs, and you've cooked them in a bit of oil. That's a delicious low carb real food meal right there. It can be incredibly easy. It can literally be, eggs and spinach, steak and broccoli, or it could be a really complex, homemade curry where you've got your mortar and pestle out and you're, grinding up your own cumin seeds. That's fine too. And all the ingredients are mixed together, and you just sort of roughly conceptualize that you've got your protein and your veggies all mixed in there together.
I think if anyone wanted to I do a little cooking show on Facebook on a Tuesday night. Has been at 5 o'clock. It's just about to change to 5:30 because I'm always late to my own show, which is unhelpful. But again, I will usually bang together a low-carb real food dish. Low-carb real fast is really what it should be called because it's usually done, on the plate, ready in less than 20 minutes. So it doesn't have to be in our heads, because we're so used to doing all or nothing. In our heads, we're either buying takeaway or doing MasterChef there's actually an in-between where you can just bang together a really delicious low-carb real food for the family that the whole family are going to eat really quickly.
I love it, Lucy. Your meals are made in less time than it would take someone to drive through the Macca's drive-through. To go out, get Macca's and come home, you have made a delicious, nutritious meal in less time. And for often, I would say, probably even less money.
Yeah, absolutely. All of those are on our website if anyone ever wanted to have a look on our blog. We have a blog post. So lots of recipes, lots of demonstrations on how to do it. So it doesn't have to be hard. But Maz, we do love protein, and, you know, I think it's really important for our listeners to know why. Why do we love protein?
Protein is an absolutely essential nutrient. We've got our 3 macronutrients that make up our food: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. There are no essential carbohydrates. You can live without carbs. You can, and you'll be fine. We have a few essential fats, the essential fatty acids and some essential fat-soluble vitamins. You can't really live with no fat. Protein in particular is especially essential. It's an essential nutrient that we use to make all of the structures in our bodies, all of the enzymes in our body. It's an incredibly important part of every single bit of us, and we need it.
And I think it's important for when we use the word essential, we have 2 phrases in nutrition. There's essential and non-essential. Non-essential doesn't mean that our body doesn't need it. It often means that our body can make it itself. How clever is our body? So incredibly clever. It can make stuff.
That's true. That's true. Our body will make sugar. That's a very good point there, Lucy, that we do like to have a little bit of sugar in our blood. We like our blood sugar to be nice and normalised. And if we don't eat sugar, our liver will happily make just the right amount of sugar. And our body will make lots of proteins that we need, but to create all of the cells and all the structures within our body, but we need to get the raw ingredients. And the most important raw ingredient that we eat is protein. And it's so incredibly important that we get the right amount of protein, that our brains have got multiple redundant pathways that control our desire for protein. And if we just listen to our bodies will actually, most of the time for most people, will let us know how much protein we need. This can be a scary idea for a lot of people. But, you know, protein is such a crucial nutrient that the brain has specific mechanisms that will increase our desire for protein if we need more protein. And if we're getting enough, then our desire for protein will go down. And these mechanisms are really strong, and they're really difficult to override through willpower alone. So, you know, generally for most people, I recommend that they simply eat as much protein as they crave. But if that's too frightening a concept for people, Lucy, how much protein should people be eating?
It's a difficult question overall because people are all different sizes.
They're very different, yes.
So, you know, you've got small people and big people. And so if you're a small person, then you may need roughly, say, 60 grams of protein a day. If you're a big person, then you might need 120 grams of protein a day, give or take. I think that, again, these are always just rough ideas, and you don't need to have the same amount of protein every day because our body can make a lot of its own proteins and it can recycle proteins. But you can't do that if it's always undernourished. So the most important thing is, though, that 100 grams of meat, for example, is not 100 grams of protein. So when we say 60 grams of protein, sometimes people think, oh, that's not very much, 60 grams of meat. Like, wow, that's hardly anything.
Tiny little sliver of steak, yes.
Yeah, no. So no, the rule of thumb is that meat has roughly 20 grams of protein per 100 grams. So that's whether it's red meat or white meat, it's roughly. Some of them are a little bit more, some of them are a little bit less, doesn't matter. So most nights, if I'm having meat, I have 250 grams of meat. So if I make something with half a kilo of mince in it, I'll have half of that. So that's 250 grams. And that gives me roughly 50 grams of protein in that meal. We know that eggs have about 6 or 7 grams of protein per egg. So you can go 3 eggs, about 20 grams of protein. It's always good to try and work out, are there any little ways to sneak in a bit of extra protein? So in your salad, I'm a big fan of always adding an egg to the salad. It's easy. If you boil up your eggs at the start of the week, you've always got a dozen eggs in the fridge. You can always whack in an egg.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't eat enough protein to support good health. I think that there's lots of people out there who've got conditions where, it would be useful to eat more protein. And that is basically anybody with any kind of chronic illness or chronic inflammation. People who are stressed probably need to increase their protein intake to help their body heal and overcome the effects of the chronic illness or the chronic stress, because stress actually increases wear and tear on our body, and it actually literally increases the rate at which the tissues break down. There's this concept called allostatic load, and an allostatic load is it's like the cost of chronic exposure to the hormonal and neural elements of elevated stress. Anything that we perceive as stressful, it results in increased tissue breakdown, particularly the collagen proteins. And so if you're somebody who's quite stressed, and in my experience, kind of most people are, eating more protein can be a really helpful way, as well as other aspects of stress management, to help your body heal and to overcome the effects of chronic stress, as well as people trying to lose weight. Eating more protein is, I think, a very effective tool, because not only is protein an essential nutrient that we need, and a lot of us aren't eating enough, it's extremely satiating when you eat protein and fat together. And that is why the low carb, real food, build your plate philosophy is the way that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you will have heard in previous episodes, and I talk about you can eat 9 Tim Tams reasonably easily, but eating 12 eggs, even though they have the same calories, eating 12 eggs in a row for most people is pretty hard. Your body says enough, thanks very much.
That's right. And you talk about the CHOP test as well, which I love, which is, again, those mechanisms that just our body lets us know when we've had enough protein, in particular, that after your meal, I love this is a Lucyism, but I love it, that after you've eaten your meal and, there's the opportunity to have a bit more dessert or something is coming along. But if you sort of think about, if somebody offered me a CHOP right now, would I want the CHOP? And if the answer is definitely no, then you've had enough. You are satiated.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference, isn't it? Learning to tell the difference between desire and hunger is really crucial, because, if you're hungry, you have to eat. It's mean to your body to deny it nutrition if it's hungry. So if you're hungry, please eat. If you're not actually hungry, you just desire, well, that's the mindset stuff that we work on. But for a lot of people, they don't know the difference, because we're not taught. We don't talk about it enough. Or we've never really thought about it. We just have breakfast, lunch and dinner at the same time every day regardless.
And what about when people fast? Because I do get asked this question a lot. So I talk about protein is an essential nutrient. Base your meals on protein. I discuss how to build a plate and draw it out for them. But then people, what about when I'm fasting? You're telling me that every now and again I should be doing these intermittent fasts, that they're really good for my health. Yep. So just clarify why this is okay.
Well, I think if we look at humans in general, again, humans, we now live in houses and we have regimented lifestyles. That's not how we evolved. We evolved, like lots of creatures, to be hunter-gatherers, and, food came in fits and starts, and our body can actually cope with that. So when we're fasting, you will have a lower protein day. I mean, if you're doing a 36-hour fast, you're obviously going to have a day with no protein. That's okay, because the next day you'll have a bit more. It's like we talk about with chronic calorie restriction. It's the chronic undersupply of protein that is the problem. Remember, chronic just means time. It's it's not a measure of severity, it's a measure of time, like chronicity. So when you constantly undereat protein, that's when your body suffers. If you're doing it here and there, again, we're adaptable species, we're very resilient, then that's fine.
And yeah, our bodies are completely designed to go without food for short periods of time, and we will recycle through our old damaged cells and tissues and use those proteins to build whatever new enzymes or cells that we need to build that day. Our bodies are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They don't need a constant supply of calories or food to work properly. We're actually much more sophisticated than that.
Exactly. And I think what we do need, though, and this is probably, and we have talked about it, rather than focusing on calories, we need to focus on nutrient density. Our current Western diet is full of empty calories, and so we are constantly in nutrient deprivation with fuel excess.
And some of the most nutrient-dense foods that you can eat are the foods that are rich in protein. Your meat, your eggs, your fish, your seafoods. These are some of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet, especially organ meats, if you can go that way. They are also incredibly nutrient-dense.
They are, and we did do an episode recently with Jessica Turton, who gave a great tip on if you go to a butcher to get your mince, just get them to add a little bit of minced liver through it. You won't even taste it, but it will transform your meat, your mince, which is already pretty nutrient dense, into like a superfood.
Absolutely. I love that idea. Yeah, I hide liver in things. Yeah. Yep. I do that all the time. I hope my family don't listen to this because I don't tell them. They eat more organ meat than they realise.
That's wonderful.
Good. I thought I might share my plates today. Some people are interested in what we eat. So I've just been sitting here calculating because I've already had breakfast and lunch. Today was an eating day for me. I had 3 meals today. I don't always have 3 meals, but I wanted 3 meals today. Felt right for my body. So I had 2 eggs and some broccoli for breakfast. So that's probably going to be about 15 grams of protein. I had some sliced chicken thigh and salad for lunch. So that's probably about another 30 grams. And I'm going to have a steak tonight, which it's not that big. I'm probably going to be about another 30 grams of protein in there. So all up, I'm probably going to be having, that was about 75 to 80 grams of protein today for me is in my meals. So my meals have been 2 eggs and broccoli, some sliced chicken breast and salad. It was pretty delicious. Made a really nice salad dressing. And I'm having steak and whatever veggies I can scrounge around tonight. And that's going to be 80, 90 grams of protein probably. And that would be reasonably typical for me. I'm not a particularly huge person. And that just feels right. That's not me aiming to have a particular number for protein. It's just being guided by what feels right and how much I want and how much my body tells me that I want.
Yeah, absolutely. And, even like if I'm out, we went out yesterday, my husband and I, and had brunch at about, it was all day brunch, so it was actually about 2:00. And they had beef brisket that had been slow cooked with a couple of poached eggs and some beautiful hollandaise sauce, with a side that had a mushroom with some feta on it. So naturally, it was meant to come with a bagel, but I just said to them, don't put the bagel on. And it was beautiful and so filling. And, when I eat that amount of food at 2:00, then dinner for me was much smaller because I was quite full still.
You listen to your body.
Totally. Makes it so easy. So lovelies, I think protein is protein. Did you hear that? Protein. Definitely prioritize your protein. Add a couple of veggies. Add some fat if your protein's lean. If your protein's pork belly, you probably don't need to add any fat, but if your protein's eye fillet, beautiful knob of butter on it, it's delicious. And then your flavour, which is, your herbs, your spices, your salt, pepper, whatever, to make it delicious. Your body will thank you.
Simples. Bye-bye.
So, my lovely listeners, that ends this episode of Real Health and Weight Loss. I'm Dr. Lucy Burns.
And I'm Dr. Mary Barson. We're from Real Life Medicine. To contact us, please visit rlmedicine.com.
And until next time, thanks for listening.